Hi, we're Roxanne and Len, a Canadian couple who have retired early and are out exploring the world. Today, we bring you our top 9 churches that you must see when you're in Sofia. Let us know what you think. Have you been to them? Which are your favorite?
We're starting out across the street from our accommodation where this mosque is here. This is the Banya Bachi Mosque. Here is the Church of St. Petka, Serdika, a 14th century church. Down there are the ancient Roman remains of this ancient city of Serdika dating to the 4th to 6th century AD. And off in the distance is the Banya Bashi Mosque that was built in 1576. And out of sight, but not visible here, is also a Jewish synagogue and a Catholic church. This area is concentrated with historical sites and buildings. Here I'm standing in front of the Rotunda of St. George, which is the oldest standing, most well-preserved building in the city of Sofia. It was built in the 4th century by Emperor Constantine himself, and it survived up until this day. It's the patron temple of Bulgarian soldiers, and inside the temple there are 5 layers of paintings and frescoes dating back to the 4th century. One of the layers is from the Ottoman period, and there's also a 10th century painting in there of Archangel St. Michael. And what's unique about this building is that following World War II, when the Communist Party took over, they intentionally built this huge complex around this church in order to hide it from the public's view, with the thinking that out of sight, out of mind. As you know, the communist mentality was to not have religion for the people. So it's a very unique place. We have ancient history with current 19th century history all in this one place. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that these 4th century excavated remains were discovered following World War II because this area had been bombed, and that's how they discovered this complex dating back to the 4th century. But surprisingly, the Rotunda, St. George's Rotunda, survived all the bombings and 1,600 years of history, and it's still standing reasonably in the same shape that it was first built in. A very unique place. A religious building surrounded by a non-religious institution. Or what was previously a non-religious institution. This is the temple of Saint Sophia, and it was built on the outskirts of the city of Serdika, on the highest point in the area. And it was built in about the 6th century. The church bell for this temple is located in the tree outside here, which is not the original tree the bell was hung in. The bell was hung in another tree, and the reason they hung a bell in a tree is because when the church was built, it wasn't built to have a bell tower. I'm going to take you inside and show you inside the church. We're out in front of the Sofia Synagogue here in Sofia City, Bulgaria. This synagogue behind me is the 3rd largest synagogue in Europe. It was built in the early 19th century. And it also houses a museum which speaks to the history of how the local Bulgarian elite, including Boris III, the Tsar Boris III, helped to, and the local Orthodox Christians helped to save the lives of more than 50,000 Jews in preventing them being shipped away to the concentration camps. So there's a very good relationship between Sofia, the city of Sofia, and the Jewish community because of that history. And that's all explained in the museum that's within this synagogue. The signage outside the building explained that this is a very good example of very good architecture and cultural art. The signage also indicated outside that this chandelier we're looking at is the largest chandelier in Bulgaria, and it weighs upwards of 2 tons. And it is hanging from the center of the center dome. And the hall seats up to 1,170 people. which would include, I assume, the upper levels. It's beautiful artwork on the columns. So we just came out of the Sofia Synagogue, and just as a tidbit of information, if you're coming to visit this site, you need to have your passport with you and go through a security check, emptying your pockets and backpack checked and so on.
Yeah. It takes a little bit of time.
Takes a few minutes.
Yeah. Be patient.
Through a metal detector, and then once you're past that, there's a 5 lev fee per person to go in. Here behind me is the current church, the Catholic Cathedral of St. Joseph. This is not the original church that was here. The original church that was here was started to be built in 1878 from funding from an Austrian emperor. And it was here until 1944, during Second World War, when bombs destroyed that church. And there were funds raised to restore it. But following World War II, during the communist regime in Bulgaria, the funds for that church, to rebuild that church, went missing. So it wasn't successfully rebuilt. But then in 2002, Pope John Paul was here, and he consecrated the first stone for the building of this church. And from there forward, it was rebuilt into its current state. So this is the Catholic Church of St. Joseph. Here is St. Nicolae, the miracle worker Russian church, or St. Nicholas miracle worker church. It was built in 1914 and built with Russian architecture and style. Unfortunately, we can't go in it today to show you inside, because there's a service going on inside. I'm standing in front of Alexander Nevsky Cathedral Church. This church was built between 1906 and 1913. It was erected to give gratitude to the Russian people for the Russians' efforts in liberating the Bulgarians from the Ottoman reign in the Russian-Turkish War of Liberation, 1877 to 1878. The church was named after the Grand Prince Alexander Nevsky, who was the leader of the Russian army. It's built in, and it is the largest operating Orthodox cathedral in Bulgaria, and can seat 5,000 people. This is a beautiful, immense church. So I just came out of Alexander Nevsky Cathedral Church, and I wanted to record this just to share with you. Part of what I understand about this church is that in the center of the church, underneath chandelier and the center dome, there's a mosaic, a circular mosaic with a star, and it's believed that if a person goes and stands under that chandelier in the center of the dome and prays for a wish or asks for a wish, that wish or dream will come true, or that wish will be granted, or that prayer will be granted. So while I was in there, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to do that. I went in and waited my turn and went to the center, and I guess I was selfish. I made 2 prayers, and I made 2 prayer requests, and I lit 2 candles afterwards for those. So I'm hoping that those prayers are answered. Thanks for joining me in this incredibly beautiful church.